Hey guys, thank you for joining me today on my first tutorial. Today we'll be covering how to use Java 8 in parallel with Selenium. Before we get started, I just want to give some brief tips. So when I personally watch YouTube tutorials and so forth, I like to put the subtitles on in case the presenter provides some content or vocabulary that I'm not familiar with. I could write them down on some notes and come back and look at them, like go more into depth into those areas that I'm not familiar with. Also, too, I like looking at the resources the presenters provide, so I could go into depth in that area as well. So, okay, what is Selenium? Selenium is a free open source automated testing suite. It has four components and it focuses on automating web based applications. And these are the four components. But today we're gonna be focusing on WebDriver. Just to give you a heads up, like any technology that advances to new versions, it happens to have some changes in it. And Selenium ain't no different. As you can see, the Selenium RC and WebDriver merged into Selenium 2, and then you got a new improved in Selenium 3, and this is what we will be looking at today. Um, Go ahead and look at this web page whenever you have a chance. But we'll just take a quick glance between the difference of IDE and a WebDriver. It's pretty simple. IDE is used for recording test cases and for playback of those tests. The WebDriver is for writing test cases in programmatic fashion. So the WebDriver is the one that we're going to be focused on because we're going to later on in the video, I'm gonna show you uh, a scripture that I wrote, and then on the next video, we will create our own scripture from scratch. But I want to highlight and talk about the code. So you could be using the Eclipse for the Java environment to create the test case, but I'll be using Spring Tool Suite 4. And in case you guys are wondering, it's um it's based on Eclipse, and it helps you develop Spring applications. Um, I learned it to start learning how to create RESTful web services, and um, I've gotten feedback that it's providing easier transactions to make RESTful web services. Um, and it comes with a Tomcat web server, and you could integrate relational databases as well too in it, like SQL, and so forth. A lot of SQL databases, but make sure that you set up the right Java path into your Windows machine, um, and just look at these videos or look at YouTube how to do it. We're not gonna go more into depth into that, and we're not gonna be covering how to download Spring Tool Suite, but you could YouTube it and get the answer. Once you get that settled in, um, we'll proceed with downloading Selenium. So we will be going to selenium.dev / downloads / and here's the downloads page. Um, we will be needing the latest 3.14 Selenium server because we need it for to run the scripture. So we're gonna download it, but I already have it, so I'm not gonna do that. But we will be needing it since. That's right there. We'll be needing it for the Java project. Also, here are the different types of bindings for the different languages. So we'll go ahead and proceed with the download for the Java. But I already have that. But in case you guys didn't, I will figure it out later. Delete it. But once we're done getting that out the way, we'll go to this link where it says other languages exist. So you click on it, um, and we will be using the Google Chrome driver, and we will be using the Gecko driver to automate the script and make sure it runs on the Chrome and Mozilla web applications. So the thing is, um, you got to play around with the different versions. So for this test scenario, we'll be using Chrome driver 77.0, and that's the one you're gonna download. I don't think they have it here though, because you got to play around with the versions. Like I said, for certain, if your Selenium version is not uh, aligned with the Chrome or Mozilla versions and with the WebGecko uh, web driver and the Chrome web driver, your program will crash. But I already did a test recently, like less than a month ago, and it runs. The We're in November 2019, so it's um, guaranteed run. So we will try to download the Chrome. So you'll download this version. But I already got it. Um, so once you download that after, you'll download the Gecko driver. That was the Chrome we just did. So Mozilla Gecko driver. And you will get the 64 Windows. Well, I will get it because I'm using Windows, but you will get the one according to your operating system. Um, and once you get that, um, oh, go to your. Once you download the Java, once you download this Java file, you will get something similar to this. You extract it, extract all. I already have it, but I'm just showing y'all. Um, and once you do that, you will need the client combined before I talk about the code and go into depth, describing what does what. I just want to show you guys how an automated test script works. Right click, run as Java application, and find the it's gonna find YouTube, find an ID, and send. Click on that ID, and it's gonna send Selenium beginners to the search query box.
Manage anything with Monday.com, even a controversial ad campaign. Your strategy? Get your ad banned from television. Next, choose a famous person, like that stand-up comedian. I think.
So I made it. Find element by XPath, name, and ID, and this is our just different elements that you could find these attributes or specific identifications from the web page that the WebDriver targets to perform tasks. Um, going forward, with the lesson, I will now start talking about the project. So right here, before I start the project though, I just wanted to want to express this, that I created a folder called lib. Inside lib, I created another folder called lib. And inside that folder, this wasn't necessary. I don't know what I was doing. I was just playing around, but I just kept going with the code. And I think if I erase this, all of this would go away. So I'm not even gonna play with it. I just leave it as it is. But inside that lib folder, I created a Chrome driver folder and a Gecko driver folder, and I separated those. After I downloaded them, I put them in there, and then I created another folder called the Selenium 3 jars, and in there I pulled the jar, the client combine, the one I was talking about earlier, and the Selenium server standalone, which we downloaded. We downloaded all this earlier. Um, but to create a folder, you just go right here, click on the project, right click, new folder, and then you just name the folder, and it goes under here. And to create a folder nested inside that folder, you click on the folder and new, and the same procedure. Um, but yeah. So once I created the lib folders, and so after I copied it, it will be in there. And I'll do the same with the Gecko driver. Find it through there, Gecko driver app. Oops, sorry. Gecko driver. Open file location. Copy it, paste it. So I kind of did it twice, but you get the point. Um, for the client combined jar in the Selenium server standalone jar, the client one will get through the Selenium. The folder we had earlier, it contains it. You unzip it, and you just copy the same, copy it, and then put it into the Selenium jar. But we're just gonna put it in here. Um, and as you can see, it's it's different. It looks different. It looks more like brown at the left corner than this one. And for you to get it to look brown, which you will need for everything to run, the Selenium server standalone on the client, you right click it, go to build path, and add to build path. And once you put into add to build path, it will create the. It will go to this reference list, and it will create the client combined in Selenium. But I'm not gonna do it because um I did a test a scripture earlier, and I was playing around with this. I put it into the build path, and I deleted the client combined and the Selenium combined from the folder, and it crashed the program. So as you can see, that's why it's automation too. Um, but I just wanted to let you guys know how you could get that coffee turning brown on the left corner, and it turns after you build it to the to the build path. Um, and yeah, that's how I created this, just to keep in mind. Try to organize, be as organized as you can. Um, this is just a small folder. I'm a small program. Um, just imagine the corporate setting, how much code it could be involved. But also one thing that I just started learning Java not that long ago myself, and a lot of things that I noticed on the tutorials is like learning how to write the code is one thing, but also learning how to form and structure your code is another great. Um, it should be a great habit that an experienced developer should know have and know. But it comes in their time. Um, I built this uh, code or the scripture of looking at multiple tutorials myself on YouTube. Going to Google, learning, searching. Man, that's what came out of it. Um, but not to go to the code though. I will talk about it. So here, so now that we build everything to the build path, we have extended the needed jars. I created a first test case class, a first test class. I created a first test class. Um, but before that, I imported the Panga Selenium packages, and I called these methods and instances of that class of packages um, that came from that package, and I basically needed to call the Chrome driver, the Firefox driver, the web driver, and the by method to help us identify the elements, find element by. Um, so this is the public static void. Here I'm running the methods to keep it concise. And here I create the methods And when I create the method, I'm doing public static void. So I could, in parallel, this class could use some of those elements as their as a parameter, but we'll go into that later. Um, so the static void, I create a class, public class static void set browser, and this is the browser variable declared earlier. Um, the static browser is a string data type, a static string browser. Um, and basically, when you're automating these tests, you want to automate your scripture in multiple, as many as different web environments as you can. For example, Ethernet, Chrome, Firefox, and so forth. Um, and so basically, this basically sets the browser, Chrome, public static void set browser config, has two if loops, and for each different if loop, uh, if it's Chrome or Firefox, it chooses different web drivers to run the scripture. So contains is a method that you can look up. And you can just get a quick glimpse at Guru 99. I'm not gonna go too into depth about it, but just the browser, if it contains Chrome, the system will set the property of the web driver to Chrome driver. So when you set the property, you gotta the set property method will take two values or two attributes, and you gotta specify them in the double parentheses. Um, and you separate it by the comma. Once you separate it by the comma, you gotta create the second value, which will be the where the web driver is stored. And for simple ease, that's why we created this. So to get the location, right click, properties, and then you can just find the location, copy this whole thing, and paste it there, and just make sure you close it with the semicolon at the end. Uh, Once you do that if loop, so if browser is Chrome, set the property to WebDriver, locate it here, and then the driver is the new Chrome driver, and vice versa, Firefox. Set the property of the WebDriver Gecko driver, and it's found there. Driver will be the new Firefox driver, and the driver variable is a static web driver, and it's this instance of a class of the WebDriver class, instance of this class, because it's a type, like strings a type, it's a data type. WebDriver is is a kind of data type that we imported from this package. Um, Moving forward, we covered set browser config and public static void run test. It's where we basically identify the elements and we try to manipulate to send keys. Find a search query. It will type the Selenium beginner how to write first Selenium script tutorial, which I recommend, which is why I put it here for beginners. Very good stuff. And here the library utilities. We imported that package, so we're able to use some of those elements, and we use the wait for element to load, which is taking some parameters, taking the driver, depending on what driver it is. So you see how driver will become a Firefox or Chrome driver. Depending on that, it will do a different. Um, it will run on a different platform or different web service, and then inside there we separate that value by another value, and inside that value is this is very concise. It's kind of hard to explain, but after watching tutorials, this is the most concise way that I was able to write this script. Um, so here you tell the driver to do another method called find element, and this is where you do by where we imported it earlier, and then here is the different. This is the types of elements I use: name, ID, XPath. But there's more though. This is the ones I use. Guru will be having some pretty good stuff. This highlights it. This is what I use. XPath. Um, and I created my XPath. One thing about XPath, you could create your own XPath, which I did, and I'll go into that later. But I just want to show you the different types I did. Um, this is a custom XPath right here, and then it takes 20 seconds. It waits 20 seconds and then it clicks because you're waiting for the element to load. So it waits 20 seconds and then it clicks. So this um, will click after 20 seconds of waiting and so forth. The thread sleep um, helps. So when we do the void run test, we put some parameter. We put a parameter, uh, and the digit type is long or integer type. So digits in Java, there's a float for decimals. Um, Integers long. There's and so you got to specify the type of digit type or integer you're trying to specify. So we use long as the type, and to use the thread sleep, for example, um, for right here, we created an XPath for the skip button. You know, when you play a YouTube video, sometimes the ad comes, um, and then you put skip. That skip button has a specific element, but for you to get that skip button for this test to find it, you gotta wait 14 or so seconds um, for the scripture to identify where it's at. Because if I didn't have the thread sleep, it would think it's there because the code runs pretty fast. And if it doesn't find it, whoops, if it doesn't find it, um, you're out of luck. Pretty much, it's just you're gonna be stuck watching ads. But yeah, and you could look into that. Thread sleep Java, and what was the exception? Uh, Interrupted exception. And basically, um, you could always put documentation at the end so you could get the specific um, facts about instead of peeping around the bush. And there'll be some like most forums are useful, but sometimes there's like I be going through like articles and I be like, man, I just like y'all talked about nothing and I didn't learn nothing. So sometimes it's best to go to from the source. But I'm gonna take a quick pause because my battery is about to run out, and I'll see you guys soon. So got my charger. We would proceed with um, explaining this. So we will look at the library utilities class. So in the library utilities class, I imported the Selenium Opanga package, Opanga Selenium org package, WebDriver, web element, support UI exception conditions, and the WebDriver wait. Um, so I create a public class inside that library utilities class. I create a public statement and created an instance of an object of the web element object and called it wait for an element to load and gave it some parameters, the web driver, which is the driver variable, the web element, which will be the web element ID XPath. Um, Basically, any uh, any element that we get. So this could from this tag name, blank text, and so forth. And the integer will be seconds. Type. So the WebDriver wait, call it wait. We initialize a WebDriver wait type and call it wait, which will equal a new WebDriver wait, and we'll set another parameter driver in seconds and separate the value with the commas. As always, close it with the semicolon. And the web element instance of a class, a web element, and we'll create it. We'll name it element, the variable, but it's a web element type. And we'll say that it is equal to, it's going to wait until, and wait until its wait is off this, and until is a method, and expected conditions, visibility of web element. Um, and we're going to create a public static web element, and there's going to be a web element type. Wait for element to click is going to be the method. Give it some parameters similar to the one above. But here, the WebDriver wait is going to equal to a new WebDriver wait with the same parameters. Pretty much everything is going to be the same. It's going to return the element, but this was created because sometimes these elements that we're trying to retrieve from the web page, sometimes the web page goes too fast or too slow, and we can't retrieve these web pages or these elements, and we can manipulate the web page to how we want to. So this is kind of like an extra layer of with the sleep in seconds and just timing it right that I've kind of accumulated through the tutorials that I learned. So we threw in some tutorials that I was looking at. They mentioned that if I did it this way, I won't need the thread sleep like use it if I'm formatted how I did it. But I happen to mix both. I watched two different tutorials, so I just mixed both ideologies, and it happens to work fine. Here I'm waiting 14 or so seconds, or right here I wait 20 seconds for it to click. So I'm kind of like, it's waiting, it's sleeping 14 seconds for this to go. But this, the whole time, the wait for element to load was waiting 20 seconds since the start of the um, process. Um, you just look into what wait for element to load and sleep, thread sleep in Java's space Selenium documentation, or just Google it. You'll get some very more in depth about how to use these methods. But now I'm gonna run it and show you guys how to find these elements real quick. There's two ways that you could find the elements. You could select an element in the page to inspect it, and you can click certain elements around it. For example, the play tag, the play button is a button tag. It's a certain element. I just click, it highlights it. The class it is, the area dash label. It goes play, title, play, and K. Um, and that's how we get the name ID. For the XPath, you gotta it's a little different. You gotta still put in double parentheses, and then two forward slashes, and then um you gotta these right here are custom, and this is just a regular XPath. Um, but sometimes even with this documentation, that sometimes the names won't work or so, because it'd be multiple um a lot of elements, and the computer gets confused for the first element it finds, and it might click something else that you might not that's not relevant to what you want. So here's where you create the XPath. So when you customize it, it's two forward slashes, and then the tag it is. So this is button, paper button, and then the at sign, and whatever this content might be, title, class, and so forth. You put it, but you see how in here you gotta put it around this square brackets. You put first, you gotta put the tag right here, define it. That tag will be this, like, this is a tag, whereas the purple button, span is a tag, div is a tag. So it's two forward slash the tag. Then you um put the square brackets, and then you put the at, and then the following the at will be the type of value, which would be title, ID, um, class, style, and then what you put equals and whatever it has inside the double brackets, but in here it's instead of, I mean, not the double brackets, sorry, double parentheses. Instead of having double parentheses in here, you gotta put one the the simple or the single parentheses, because as you see, we use the double ones um, to basically in the beginning to nest everything inside. So it gets the compiler will get confused, um, and then you close it. So basically, all this right here, all this was everything sitting here. For example, the YTPO promoter, tooltip dash wrapper, and then yeah, and then you wait the 20 seconds. So find element is a method, wait for element is a method, and then buy is it's like it's all nested methods nested inside each other. Click, and that's how you find the customized XPath. So on the next video, we will create a testing script from scratch. Um, but it won't be YouTube though. I'm still thinking what I should create. Um, Stay tuned though. Thank you for joining the first tutorial, and please provide any positive feedback on how to improve the quality of the videos. I know the audio is terrible. It's my first video. I'm still learning the ropes on how to edit the video and so forth. But the whole point is for anybody interested in learning to basically get them motivated to believe in themselves, because some of this work feels overwhelming, especially if you have a non-technical background. But anything's possible. Just put your mind to it. Have a great day.